ever said to yourself, self, I think I need to break up this sewing project, come up with something different to do, some way to use up a whole bunch of scraps in a little bit of a different way? Well, then I've got a little video for you today. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to use a little thing called scrap tape. I'm going to show you how to make this lovely, what did I do with it? I don't know why I rolled it up. Who knows why I rolled it up? I'm going to show you exactly how to use scrap tape. It'll be quick and easy. So grab your sewing gear and a handful of scraps, and let's get into it. First off, you're going to grab a handful of scraps. Now, they don't have to be the same color scheme. I usually like to do it more random, but I thought, hey, all these purple scraps, they look pretty cool, so I thought I'd pick them up. You're also going to need a roll of scrap tape. Now, the one that I got is off of Amazon. I will link it in the description. There is also the method of making this with adding machine tape or register tape. You just want to make sure that it's not the thermal kind. The other thing that you have to remember is that if you use adding machine tape, that you're going to have to remove it before you use it into your final project. Another thing that's nice about the scrap tape is that it is water soluble. So whenever you go to wash your item that you use it in for the first time, it's going to disappear. I've seen it happen with my own eyes. So it is amazing. Yeah, it's not very thick. It's kind of like a very thin interfacing thickness, but it's very easy to handle and very easy to work with. But what I like to do is cut it into strips that are a little bit more manageable than just working on the roll. So the strips that I cut for this were about 22 inches. I've done it 20 before, 22, somewhere in there is usually a good size. But yeah, this just went all the way across my cutting mat. So it worked out pretty well. But once you cut out your strips, adding your scraps is going to be super duper easy. Yes, Farah. Yes. Yes, can I do this video voiceover or no? No, I guess not. Farah said she's not going to let me do this voiceover because she's wants to be super vocal. Is that right? Yep. As she says that, she is purring. So, but she really just wants my attention, honestly. Does anybody else out there have a Velcro cat? Because I definitely have a Velcro cat. Anytime I try to do any sort of audio or voice work or anything like that, she has to also put her input into it. So anyway, I'm gonna try to do this and we'll see how it goes. We're gonna go ahead and just work with one right now. But the 2.5 inches, like I said, is a very standard size. Now, what I'm going to be using this, I'm going to be using this for binding. So I'm going to go ahead and when I trim it, I'm going to trim it flush with the tape. But I have seen other people that have trimmed it a 1/4 inch away from the sides if they were going to attach this to, say, some sashing or, say, attach it to another piece of material so that it's not so bulky. But once you get your scraps together, it's going to be very easy to just attach these to your tape. You're just going to start out with whatever piece that you want to begin with. I'm going to start with this one because it looked like a good place to start. So why not? You're going to take that and you're going to take another scrap and you're going to put them right sides or pretty sides together. We're going to do a 1/4 inch seam allowance to attach those to the scrap tape. Once you've sewn your first 2 scraps down with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, you're basically going to do the exact same thing all the way down your strip. You want to make sure that on each one of your pieces that you do have some overhang to either keep the 1/4 inch on the sides or to trim it down. But you just want to make sure that you cover up your tape every time that you're adding a piece of scrap. But yeah, once you get to a piece that might have a little bit of a different shape, like this little triangular piece, what I did was I just added another triangular piece right to the side of it. Just like this little bee fabric. I just love it so much. I'm almost out of it, but yeah, you just want to add that in the same fashion, quarter seam allowance all the way down. And feel free to add some straight pins if you want to help like hold everything down. I've actually used straight pins and I've used a little bit of basting glue to keep everything nice and flat, but once we get everything attached, then you're going to give it a good press and that'll make things look nice and neat. But yeah, continue all the way down your piece of scrap tape, just adding scraps as you go. You can be consistent if you want, you can be more random if you want. The ones that I've done like this before were a lot more random than this, but like I said, I was feeling in a purple mood, so I thought that I would roll with that. This is also a wonderful way to get rid of some scraps, like some smaller scraps that you're really not sure what to do with. So yeah, you just continue adding scraps until you get all the way to the end of your scrap tape. So once you get to the end, go ahead and get your iron ready to go and get everything pressed. Now, one pro tip that I want to say is that when you press your scrap tape, since it is water soluble, do not use steam. Do not use steam because it will get kind of weird and might get gooey. Ask me how I know this. Just ask me how I know about the weirdness that it can happen if you use some steam on there. Just don't do it. Just don't do it. But yeah, go ahead and give your scrap tape a good press. And once you get it pressed, we're going to go ahead and trim it down. You're going to turn everything over to where you can see where the scrap tape is. And like I said, since I'm using mine as binding, I went ahead and trimmed it all the way to the edge with my trusty rotary tool. Link will be in the description if you want to see the one that I'm using. But yeah, I'm trimmed it right to the edge of my scrap tape. Now, one thing, like I said, if you were going to keep that 1/4 inch, just make sure to measure that out if you keep that on the sides. Another pro tip that I just want to put out there is that if you were using adding machine tape, then this would be the time where you would be removing your tape. And you also want to use a smaller stitch length to help you remove the paper. It's kind of like if you do a FPP or a foundation paper piecing. You want to use a very small kind of stitch so that when you start ripping the paper out, it's not going to pull your stitches away. But for me using the scrap tape, I just use a normal 2.5 stitch length is what I use for pretty much everything. And once you turn your strip over, you're going to have something that looks nice and lovely. Isn't that beautiful? I love how it turned out. All of the little scrappy bits there, and now they're all in a row. And you're going to be able to use that in all sorts of applications. Like I said, I'm going to be using mine as binding. It's definitely going to come in handy for when I need to use a purple motif. Hopefully this will give you some inspiration to use some of those smaller bits that may not have the best place to be, or to use some of those smaller bits that you're not sure what to do with them. But let me know if you have any questions in the comments. I do appreciate you watching, and I will see you next time.